Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to another edition of the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Eric Huffman along with Jared Stamen, Charles Strail behind the desk doing our production tonight. Thank you all for joining us. We have a special announcement to kick off our show this week. Next Level Broadcasting, in affiliation with the NFHS Network and the MHSAA, we've been granted permission to produce and give to you the Division 7 semifinal between the undefeated Menominee Maroons and the also undefeated Pewamo Westphalia Pirates, happening in Gaylord this Saturday. I believe kickoff, Charles, is at 2 o'clock. Is that right? Looking for a huge battle of the Titans, two undefeated teams. You've got a UP Power in Menominee just steamrolling through people, and you have another school in Pewamo, Westphalia coming through the central Michigan area. Again, two undefeated teams just steamrolling people, and we're going to get into some highlights and talk some pregame action along with a couple other segments as we get through the night. But right now we want to get into some highlights. Charles, which school are we going to show first right now?
Show Menominee.
Menominee show up on the highlights, and guys, go in and help me narrate the highlights as we talk about Menominee steamrolling, like I said, getting ready for their next playoff game.
Yeah, well, I was helping out with some of these highlights here, and one of the things you really notice is Tanner and you guys.
Yeah, Turkoff.
Yes. Oh my gosh! And I don't want to get too ahead of PW, but the quarterbacks in this matchup is really what you're watching for. Two of the premier guys in Division 7. A lot of people think these might be the two best quarterbacks in Division 7, and you're seeing it why. I mean, we're going to watch this first. This is the first round Menominee. All three games were at home, and they're right way up here, and they just took care of business, Eric. They really did.
And the things that's really going to stand out as we're watching the highlights are the offensive lines and the defensive lines really are cohesive units, and then it really comes down to quarterback play, as we're going to get into as you see the 48-17 final over Manton. Both quarterbacks do an outstanding job, and both can run and pass the ball very well.
Yeah, and you see the run right here as Tanner takes off. Believe that's about a 75-yard run right there by the quarterback. He's 6'3", but he's moving. He's got some jets for a guy a little bit taller. He's got that long stride.
Yeah, they always say the UP Power. I mean, obviously a nice power move, and you're checking out some arm strength right there. As I can't tell how long that is in the air, but man, what a nice run after the catch too for a score.
Yeah, and that first game against Manton was actually the closest any score in these playoffs have been so far for this team. They have just been really steamrolling people. I mean, this McBain team, they came in off for a great win at Charlevoix. And, they make that drive all the way up to Menominee, and they just get faced with a team that is just a league above them. I mean, when you watch Menominee play, and especially through these highlights, they just look like they're a D1 team, playing with a D1, playing with their food almost. I mean, it's this domination.
Here's the thing that I want to talk about and highlight. This is the third phase of football. Most of the time gets overlooked. This is on a punt or point after block. Menominee was able to do this during a district championship game last year versus Traverse City St. Francis. St. Francis, the preemptive favorite to win that game. It went to overtime, and Menominee eventually ended up winning it because of the way and because of the headspace that they were able to take up in the Gladiator special teams unit, because they were able to block a point after by the Gladiators earlier on in the game, and then the Gladiators scored, tied it up. Menominee's pressure forced St. Francis to miss the game-winning point after attempt. Menominee ended up winning in overtime. So check out a look at this highlight here, how they see McBain's formation, and then they get a free runner right inside blocking the kick. And that's huge when it comes down to forcing a team to go for two versus just being able to line up and kick the extra point. So Menominee certainly well-versed in all three phases of the game.
Yeah, it really looks like a meeting of two well-coached teams. Like you said, Charles, in all three phases. A couple other players to look out for as we were looking at the highlights earlier would be Clayton Miller, the running back, and Nathan Comp, who's a wide receiver for Menominee as well.
Yeah, and another thing, speaking of special teams, is one thing you notice for both of these teams is through the score is they don't really miss extra points either. They pretty much kick them every time, and they're putting up about 7 touchdowns a game, and you're seeing perfect point afters. It's just all three phases of the ball.
You saw that throw right there, right over the shoulders, being able to catch it on this, on the over the shoulder of the back corner of the end zone for an awesome looking touchdown there.
Yeah, and this was their most recent game against Shelby. So you'd think third round in the playoffs, your competition is going to be increasing, Eric, right? Well, it's kind of hard to see on this scoreboard, but when the final graphics shows, you'll see the final score of this game. But you're only going to be seeing Menominee offensive highlights because there was really no defensively. They just 3-and-out, 3-and-out, 3-and-out.
Well, they've been averaging close to 50 points throughout the playoffs and a little over 46 during the regular season. So it's not like they've taken a step back in any way getting into the playoffs to face stiffer competition. They're actually looks like they're getting better as a year goes on.
Yeah, as that's the most recent final was 43-0, not even letting them get a single point.
So let's go ahead and take a look at Pewamo Westphalia's highlights as they also, Eric, an undefeated record so far going into this state semifinal weekend.
Well, them also, they're averaging a little over 46 points a game. So, again, two offensive powers and two hard-nosed defensive teams going at it. And anytime you can beat Ithaca in the playoffs, you know you're going somewhere.
Yeah, and again, it wasn't just a playoff. We'll get to the highlights of Ithaca, but it wasn't just a win. It was, again, domination. I mean, these teams have all played their home games in the playoffs up until this point because, as we know in the semifinals, it is a neutral site, but there's a reason that these teams play at home all the time is because they win from the week 1, well, as of now, up to, I guess, week 11. Or was it week 12, going on to week 13?
Yeah, I think we're on to week 13 now
Yeah.
if you count the playoffs. Again, one of the closer games as you're looking on here for P-Dub right now, 27-12 as the highlights are showing. But again, nothing close like that. I don't think they had anyone get any more than maybe 12 or 15 points throughout the season as, again, they're averaging over 46 points.
Yeah, and their quarterback, Ty Thalen, here is going to throw it up to Piggott, number 1, their big tight end. And you're going to be seeing his number called a lot. And I know on this Saturday, you and Tom are going to be saying Piggott quite often.
Well, that's not just a number 1 on his jersey for how big he is. That's almost a side of a goal post is the size of that number on there. I mean, he's a large receiver.
Yeah, and it makes it easy, for Thalen, who has thrown 31 touchdown passes on the year, throwing less than 1,500 total yards. This team just is very efficient with their passing plays. They have another player with 19 catches, yet he has 11 receiving touchdowns, averaging less. It doesn't even take him 2 catches to get a touchdown. So this team knows how to score, as you mentioned, averaging about 46 points a game. And this was their second round matchup against North Muskegon, and well, yeah, they might have put up 28 points, but when you put up 56, it doesn't really matter. 28 points is pretty negligible.
Well, and PETA brings, they bring that physical punch you in the mouth intensity. Obviously Menominee does that too, but more of a spread out with precision passing, although it seems to be coming down to a battle of the quarterbacks between Turcoff and Thalen.
Yeah, that's sure what it's looking like because both these guys can put the ball on the money. There's a really great throw here. I'm sure Charles will highlight. I think it's right after this play. This is Ty Thalen just breaking off. And this is the start of the third quarter. You're tied at home, and this was pretty much the momentum switch in the game. Ithaca really never came back after that huge
No, because I don't think they score again for the rest of the game after
I don't
that.
think so either. But this is the throw we were talking about. Thalen just puts this one on the money as Charles is going to play this one for us. I mean, you can't.
Stride. Look at that. Perfect dot right over the shoulder, hit him in stride. Defense with not even about 5 yards of him.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good 30-yard plus throw from a high school quarterback. Pretty darn good. You can't really ask for much better for your P-Dub. I think we're going to see just the battle of the quarterbacks, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, you could say.
Well, and Charles, not to hype this up too much, but there's a lot of people that are calling this the de facto state title game.
I mean, and well served for them to do that. I still think you have to take into account that it is technically the Final Four, so one of these two teams will have a game to play the following week. There's a lot that goes into. It's not just an ordinary game when you go down and play in the state championship game, but that's something that Pewamo Westphalia certainly has experience doing with their coaching staff as they've made and have won 3 state championships and have been a runner-up twice in the last 10 years. So when it comes to playing at Ford Field, that's something that the Pirates of Pewamo Westphalia have become accustomed to and maybe even organized their Thanksgiving calendar around playing at Ford Field for Thanksgiving. So it's something that we'll bring up later in the show. We'll bring it up during the broadcast of that game. Once again, that game will be streamed live on the NFHS network and MHSAA.TV at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're a fan of Division 7 football, Division 6 football, or locally, that game will be played at Gaylord Memorial Stadium in Gaylord, Michigan. So if you're unable to make it, you can watch it. Or if you want to see some really good teams, maybe even the Division 7 state championship team play right in front of your very own eyes, head on over to Gaylord High School Stadium and check out this game.
Yeah, at this time, we'd like to move on, and let's talk a little Lions football. Kind of up and down. They lost to the Eagles 16-9 on Sunday Night Football, and I guess the question we want to pose this week is the Lions' greatest strength also their greatest weakness? And have you guys elaborate on that? I guess maybe kind of decipher what you think the greatest strength is, and are they beating themselves with it?
Yeah, well, I usually go first. I actually want to hear what Charles has to say. He is the main
You got
Lions
it.
fan,
Why
man. I just
not?
want to, hear it straight from the mouth. He gets to go first this time.
So my biggest thing with the Lions is they are like a gambler who has done well playing blackjack for 3 months. And everybody at the casino knows them. Everyone at the casino knows their tactics because they work. They hit on 18. That's what the Lions do. And that's what they've done. And now they have fans at the casino because everybody knows them and the other players know that, hey, this dude's going to double down on 18 or a soft 18, even a hard 18. He's not splitting his nines. He's hitting it. And that's what the Lions have made their fortune doing so far in the Dan Campbell era. And right now, they're coming up pulling face cards, monkeys, as they call them. You hit a monkey where you pull a face card and you bust at the blackjack table. Well, the Lions hit 5 monkeys on Sunday night when they went 0 for 5 on those 4th down conversions. And I think the natural progression for the Lions team now is to realize that you're a good team. You're a good blackjack player, and you can now play the percentages. You don't have to try and push and really press to get some of those big hits. And, now that your team has a good, reliable defense, you don't have to go for it on 4th down because if you ask me, I think the Lions defense against the Eagles would have only given up 10 points had their offense not put them in terrible position. So the Lions need to play that field position game and realize that you're no longer a quote-unquote let-it-roll gambler of a team. You can certainly just go out there, play the percentages, let your defense do your thing. Heck, your defense is balling out, and you're playing like 3/4 of your secondary isn't even there. I mean, we got dudes that nobody can really even name outside of Thomas Harper, and we only know him because his name's easy to pronounce. So outside of that, you're still missing Terrion Arnold. DJ Reed's still out. Kirby Joseph is probably going to miss at least this week's game, maybe even the game on Thanksgiving versus the Packers. And, the defense is still holding its own. Heck, against the Eagles, maybe some would say the best team in the NFC, only allowing 16 points. Of those 16 points allowed, the Lions offense turned it over in plus territory at about the 30-yard line on the first possession of the game. Defense held the Eagles to 3 points. After that, the Eagles proceeded to score on 13 more points. Guys, poll question here against the Eagles game. We want to ask you, how many scoring drives did the Eagles score on where they had to go 55 yards or longer?
I'm going to say 0, Charles.
Eric?
I'll say 0.
1. And it was for a field goal. So take, for instance, that into account
Worried about a touchdown.
when you are now forming your opinions on the Lions. They can change who they are. They can now go from the guy who is either hot or cold at the casino. You're either going to see him on the street shaking a cup, or he just bought a new Mustang because he was hot at the blackjack table that week. So now the Lions maybe can preserve some of that money and realize that they're a good team. Maybe start building an investment account. 401k might be nice for the Lions. You've figured it out. Your defense is there. You no longer have to play the same game that you played in previous years. Last year, going into the playoffs against Washington, you had no defense. You had no answer. But what I'm looking for the Lions is, can they change the scheme but not lose their aggressive identity and personality? That is the question that yet remains to be seen.
Well, you're kind of segueing into what I was going to add into that tonight, and I was just going to, for the sake of our segment tonight, I was going to call it the Dan Campbell aggression. Was going to be the topic for me. The way he's got the team going with their hard nosed, with the grit, the way he's gone through the draft, the way he's built things, and the always go for it, go for it, go for it. And again, most of the time in the 1 year, I mean, they made it and won a lot and were successful a lot. But at the same time, when that doesn't work, it's such an aggressive move that you can kill your momentum and build the momentum for the other teams when you don't make it 5 times out of 5 times, or depending on other decisions you make, where you're going to run a fake on your side of the 50. So the aggression factor, if you can, like you say, Charles, possibly maybe tweak it a little bit and maybe not be as aggressive, though at the same time you don't want to lose that identity in a way, but at the same time, your identity gets you in trouble at times. And then you're going from there. Let's talk about, I think Jared Goff is a great quarterback, but I think when he's great when he's comfortable. And I think kind of segueing, and I think what you were going to talk about real quick is how the offensive line's been going.
Yeah, well, when I was thinking about the offensive line, that's been a strength for the Lions the last couple of years, and this year it's not been what we've seen. And you could point to a lot of different things. There's been some injuries. Frank Ragnow kind of abruptly retiring definitely threw a big wrench in that plan. Having a center, bigger anchor is huge, and I think we saw that in this game last week, and it was with the weather. When you have a good offensive line, you have a good run game, and what the run game does, it can negate weather effects. And, Detroit, they play in a dome, Ford Field dome. It's covered. You don't have to usually worry about that. But at this time of the season starts happening, a lot of teams are still outdoors, and a lot of the NFC teams play in cold weather, like Philly. And if you're not used to that and you don't have an offensive line to bail you out and you have to put it all on your quarterback, it doesn't matter how great your quarterback is. He can't be Superman, maybe unless you're Cam Newton back in 2016. It's really hard to win a game like that, and it all stems from your offensive line, and that leads to the weather impacting this team more than you've seen.
Guys, aren't they have a string of games coming up where they're basically in a dome for like the next 5 or 6 weeks?
I was just going to bring that up to you, Jared, and it leads and segues into the next thing that I want to ask you specifically, because you talk about the weather, you talk about how the offensive line was unable to negate the effects of weather by not establishing the run. The Lions have 6 games left. Of those 6 games, 5 of those 6 games are inside. They have 3 home games remaining against the Steelers, Giants, and Cowboys, and they're on the road against Minnesota and the Los Angeles Rams. Last game of the year is at Chicago, so outside. So 5 of their next 6 indoors. Does that change your forecast for the Lions' last 6 remaining games?
It probably does a little bit. I think that, weather, I do think definitely plays an impact. And when you can play inside, each year more teams are having closed new stadiums. So it's something that is increasingly becoming irrelevant of a point of can you play in the weather or not. It's something we talk about with the Miami Dolphins a lot. But they might be able to finish strong, but I think we could all agree this team is very, very likely to make the playoffs. But are they going to have a home game in the playoffs?
But are they likely to make the playoffs?
I was just going to say, that should have been a segment for this week, too, is will the Detroit Lions actually make the playoffs this year? What are they, at 6-4 right now?
They're at 6-4, currently at 3rd place in the division.
Well, that'll lead into, I think, our last segment, because
Yeah.
I think we're going to talk about the NFC North again before we're done here tonight. So maybe we'll save that one for our, last segment as well.
Next up, we want to talk about what's too much football. So what we want to proceed this by is saying we now have football every single day from now until Thanksgiving. So for the next, 8 days in a row, there'll be some sort of football game on every single night.
There's college football on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. You got a full slate on Saturday. There's NFL on Thursday and Sunday and Monday. And then you got your Thanksgiving break with a plethora or a buffet, if you will, of football games.
So have we reached an oversaturation point of football from a public demand standpoint? Like, are you, Jared, sick of watching football? And you're one of the biggest football geeks I know. But do you kind of hark back to the days where it was like, man, I'm really looking forward to Sunday because I know we've got 2 or 3 really good games at 1 o'clock. I know we've got 3 games that are really good at 4 o'clock. And then we've got a absolute smash mouth Sunday night football game and a really good one on Monday night football. Now, with how they're scheduling, you have Christmas Day games, Thanksgiving Day games. Obviously, there's a Thursday night football game on Thanksgiving. There's 3 games on Thanksgiving. So, like, the following Sunday preceding Thanksgiving, the 4 o'clock window only has, I believe, 2 games in it. It's like cold turkey. It's the epitome of leftover stuffing on Sunday after Thanksgiving because you're going to get 2 games in the 4 o'clock window, and odds are it's going to suck. So have we reached an oversaturation point of football, college and professional football?
Unfortunately, I think that answer is yes. I think it is, as you mentioned, I love football more than the next, just as much as the next guy, but there is a point, football is also, in my opinion, a social sport. You want to watch it with your buddies and your family and whatnot, but at the same time, you also want to go out and socialize in life. And when you have, football nerd like me, and then you have games on every major holiday now, and pretty much every dang day, your social life starts to decrease, and football starts to become almost like not fun because it's not special. And you see these matchups on Thursday that are premier matchups. Oh, well, maybe they don't go so well, and then that's taking away a game from my Sunday slate. And I think Saturday, college does a little bit better because there's so many more. Part of it is just you have 120 teams to win a week, so you're going to naturally have better matchups consistently. But it's there's always a good big noon game. There's always a good 3 o'clock.
Is there though? Because most of the time we're stuck watching or having to watch Michigan.
Well,
and
yeah,
they're like the
Michigan
4th or 5th
good.
best team in the Big Ten.
That's being generous, but
Sure.
But
consistently, I don't know. You ask a Michigan fan, they could be 4th, 5th best in the country right now.
Well, Michigan fans, whether you're a Michigan fan or not, you can acknowledge there's a bit of arrogance in the Wolverine way. But no, just
Jared, you can go ahead and stake your claim to Michigan right now, man. You told me about it. You can tell everybody about how you're born and bred a Michigan Wolverine.
Well, my mom went to Michigan, but I'm not a diehard Michigan fan. I've never claimed to be. I still root for State. If they're not, even when they're playing Michigan, I'm not going to lose sleep if State wins. I grew up in Ohio as a Michigan fan, so you can imagine my hatred lies in other places.
Yeah, I had 4 generations go to State, so it was pretty much a no-brainer.
There you go. But Jared, to finish that point,
yeah,
you got I think the problem is the segmentation of the sport. And what I mean by segmentation of the sport, we've got effectively 4 major conferences all competing to get their games on national television. And because of that, you now have the Tuesday night MACtion or the Thursday night Conference USA, or actually they would never schedule college football on Thursday night because it's the NFL's night. So Wednesday night Conference USA, maybe like a Friday night Big Ten game that's played in California because the conference has too many freaking teams in it. So now you got to play a USC versus Northwestern on Friday night on Fox, and you just look at the way that the college football and NFL have just said, hey, we're going to shove this down your throat. You're going to watch it. You like football, so therefore you're going to enjoy it and you're going to continue watching it. However, my question is, do regular Americans have the gall to say, hold the stuffing, I'll pass. I'm good on football. Let's watch the Pistons.
To the purists, they're probably going to say yes, it's oversaturated because you're missing the prestige of that special Sunday game or Saturday game or whatever that you're going to watch because you've got basically football every night of the week going on right now. Probably besides, I don't know if there's any day that doesn't have football going on right now, like we said.
Until Thanksgiving, every single day we'll have a football game.
Exactly, but at the same time, it's not that it's diluted. I just think it's more fragmented because you've got so many different types of people interested in so many different things now because you've got fantasy football, you've got sports betting, you've got all these other parts. People want to watch their special conference that's on ESPN Plus now or whatever, or something like that. And so it's more beneficial to the watcher to have those open dates to be able to see those games, as you're getting probably about the same amount of viewers, but like I said, it's more fragmented instead of being diluted into just a few days a week.
Does it also hurt the sport that I think we can go out and say 85% of the best teams in the sport reside in one conference, the SEC?
Well, that just kind of goes along with a lot of stuff with the NCAA right now. I mean, I think there's too many schools in these conferences right now as well, too. You got 16 in the Big Ten alone right now. So you're getting it's now down to the Power Four.
Power Four, yeah.
And so how long before they break off and just have their own football thing, and then you've got to watch a couple of different things now, and then we've got a whole new segment to talk about.
Certainly, and Jared, coming back to you and your point, like you say, yes, we've reached an oversaturation, but is it truly an oversaturation of supply if the demand warrants it? Because I think the reason why we've gotten here is because
money.
Yeah, like you look at the supply and demand and the economics of it, right? Like I think we just wanted more and more and more, and our civilization has become a glutton for football, especially here in America. And now you see it starting to transform globally. Now the NFL has, 6 global games this year?
I watched the 9:30 game, I think, was it from Madrid last week?
Yes. And it was a bad game. I mean,
it was like one of the worst games of the year.
We're talking Dolphins. It was Dolphins Commanders from Spain. Like, you want to know how to ruin global relations with Spain? Let's send the Dolphins over there to play.
Yeah, 16-13 was that final.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, I mean, no wonder why, NFL is getting bigger and bigger, because we're sending it to Spain and we're sending it to Dublin. We had a game in Munich this year.
Brazil.
2.
Mexico City.
I believe 3 in London.
It's usually 3, I think.
Plus, you're doing college games overseas now, too.
I didn't even know that.
And, well, you should have known that, because Michigan's heavily looking at playing college games overseas. So, you might be finding yourself.
I'm a very casual Michigan fan, if you've not picked up on that one.
Rumors floating around about them going independent, too. We can talk about that some other day as well.
And, playing at Wrigley Field, too, Jared. I mean, I'm sure that you took me out to the ball game at the last Michigan game, right?
I've never been to the Big House, Charles.
It was at Wrigley Field, Jared.
Well, I've never been to Wrigley Field either.
Okay. So they played Northwestern at Wrigley Field, for everybody wondering. Let's segue into this. So a couple weeks ago, actually 3 months ago, we each did our own NFC North predictions. And what we said, we went around the table of us. Tom Clementson and Shane Smith were also here at this time. So I'll take the liberty of speaking for Tom and speaking for Shane. So, gentlemen, if you're watching, hey, thanks for letting me have your proxy. I appreciate it. Tom Clementson picked the Chicago Bears to win the NFC North. Right now, the Bears are in first place of the NFC North with a 7-3 record. Or is it 8-3? 7-3. My correction. And they have only beaten Minnesota Vikings. They have not beaten the Green Bay Packers, and they have not beaten the Detroit Lions. So my question to you, is anyone willing to change their pick, renounce what their claim was at the beginning of the season, and join Tom Clementson with the Chicago Bears?
Well, I can confidently say no. That's an easy no for me. I still think the Lions, it's division to lose.
Eric?
After close thought, I'm keeping the Bears as my dark horse, and I'm still sticking with the Green Bay Packers.
Do you feel less confident about the Packers pick now, Eric, than you did back in August?
Maybe leading up to this, until I was looking at what I wanted to talk about tonight and then realizing what they have left on their schedule. They can basically beat their way into a title and into the playoffs. They still play all 3 teams in their division, and I think at least 5 of their last games are against division opponents. So again, they pretty much hold the cards for their way to winning the division this year.
And do you feel more or less comfortable with Jordan Love as quarterback?
I think he's starting to come around a little bit. Jordan Love seems to be a second half of the season quarterback. So as his play is starting to come around, I think the Packers will start coming around, and that defense that I know I put a waiver in for in the first week of the season will start coming around as well.
So the Packers' last 6 remaining games, though, let's compare and contrast here. Because with the Lions, as we already alluded to, the Lions will play the Giants, Cowboys, Steelers, Rams, Packers, Vikings, and Bears. So each team, well, the Lions in the NFC North will have another full session of playing the Bears, Vikings, and Packers once more. So they have 3 divisional games left. The Bears have 4 divisional games left, as do the Packers. So with 4 divisional games remaining for both the Bears and the Packers, do you actually like the Lions' chances there that the other teams in the division might beat up on each other? Because as we all know, divisional games have a different type of intensity and physicality than regular games.
Lions haven't been consistent enough for me, and that's basically it. I mean, once they're, when they first started their steamroll, when they got to the conference championship, I mean, they would have fluke losses. Now they're just losses this year. I think the consistency just hasn't been there.
I think this Lions team has been under too harsh of a microscope all season. I think that this team is a lot better than people say, not necessarily roster-wise, but I mean, if you have a defense that lets the Eagles put, I think it was 16 total points, was it last week? Was it 13? I mean, a amount where you're like, okay, we're probably going to win the game if we only let this offense do this much. I mean, and they have, like as Charles alluded to, nobody's in their secondary.
Well, you got to expect a 16-9 game that Detroit's not going to have the 9 if they have an off day.
Right, but I do think, weather plays an impact in that. And Jared Goff, when you get him off rhythm, and what's a good way to get someone off rhythm? 30-mile-per-hour gusting winds. It's pretty consistently going to make you miss some throws. I mean, as Charles can allude to, I'm not always necessarily the biggest Jared Goff fan of all time, but I don't think that he is limiting them, and I don't think.
Do you think they lost the game against Philly because of Jared Goff or because of the decisions and the impact that they put the defense in?
I think it was Dan Campbell. I think when you constantly put the momentum on the other teams and you have to keep gaining it back on the road nonetheless with bad weather, it's just hard. It's a huge mountain to climb versus trusting your defense, giving a good punt, and then maybe your defense gets a turnover and you're in field goal range already. But you can't ever have that if you're giving them the ball in plus territory 5 times.
So let's talk about the Bears here.
I was just going to say, let's give a quick shout out to the Bears. Is the one stat I have for them. They are at a plus 16 turnover differential, so their defense is really helping them out.
Are they good or are they opportunistic, though? That's the fair question. And
opportunistic.
They're also playing a fourth. Well, let's see. Minnesota finished second. Green Bay finished third in the division last year. The Bears finished fourth. So they're playing a fourth-place schedule as well. So all the other divisional opponents in the NFC East, NFC South, and the AFC North, which is the cross-schedule division that the NFC North is playing this year. Like, for instance, the Lions right now, they have one more game remaining against the AFC North, looking to go 4-0. That would be the Steelers, Ravens, Bengals, and Browns. Right? Thanks, Jared. So the Bears are getting the AFC North, but they're also getting the fourth-place teams from the other NFC divisions. So you look at it like playing Dallas, okay, and then they're going to play the Panthers, and now you're also playing these other Saints. Like, you're playing these fourth-place teams. I believe they also play the Cardinals later on in the season as well. So the Bears have that fourth-place schedule, and they still have 4 divisional games left. They still have to go to Green Bay. But one thing that really stands out for me is that the Bears don't have big negative plays. Caleb Williams does not take sacks, and he does not get sacked. And the investment that Chicago made in that offensive line, bringing in Joe Tooney and bringing in Jonah Williams to shore up the guard spots, and it really looks like it's paying off by the way that they're keeping Caleb Williams up on his feet. And Caleb Williams, credit where he deserves, he's also doing a good job of staying on his feet and then hitting those big explosive plays. I think the Bears have the second or third most explosive plays in the NFL.
Well, we'll also see who's choking on a turkey leg after the Packers and the Lions play on Thanksgiving, because that will determine a lot within the division.
Well, as you mentioned, Charles, and as Eric says all the time, you're only as good as your schedule. And the Bears have a good record, but they have a decent roster playing bad teams. They should be 7-3, all things considered. I really believe with the expectations they had.
Yeah, I was always taught, you're supposed to win the games you're supposed to win and give yourself a chance to win the ones you're not supposed to, and which team has done a better job of that.
So here are the Bears' final 6 games as we go through. This week they'll play the Steelers. Then after that they play the Eagles. Then they'll go Packers, Browns, 49ers, Lions. I mean, what do you think?
2-4.
Eric?
Run that again.
Okay. They've got Steelers, Eagles, Packers, Browns, Packers, 49ers, Lions.
How many games is that? 6 games?
6 games. Yep.
Ooh. 3-3.
Okay. So you got the Bears at 10-7. Jared, you got them at 9-8.
I think that's a very fair year one under Ben Johnson for the Bears.
Okay. So 10-7 wild card, depending on who they beat. If they beat Green Bay twice, they'll be a wild card team. If Green Bay loses twice to the Bears, once to the Lions, let's go over Green Bay's schedule because that is a schedule kind of looming in the distance, and a lot of things change because of the tie that the Packers got against the Dallas Cowboys. And when you look at what the Packers have remaining, they've got an interesting 6-game stretch here coming down the final session of the NFL season. Because the Packers this week will play the Vikings, divisional opponent. Then on Thanksgiving, they play the Lions, another divisional opponent. And then the Bears. So 3 straight divisional games for the Packers. And then they go to Denver. And then they have Chicago again. And then they have the Ravens in week 16, or 17, excuse me. And then week 18, they get the Vikings as well. So what's your outlook for the Packers, Jared?
It's not looking too great, Charles. I can't lie to you. What's that? 1 Lions, 2 Bears. I don't know. I would say
Broncos, Ravens, and Vikings.
I think they'd be happy to be 3-3, but I don't think they'll get to 3-3. I think it'd be another 2-4. I could even see 1-5. I don't know. I don't really trust this team that much, to be honest with you.
4-2.
4-2. Okay, so you said it right there, Eric. Packer going 4-2, which would put them at 10-6-1. Chicago at 10-7. Do the Lions go 11-5? And if the Lions go 8-5, Eric, why have you not changed your pick to win the NFC North?
Because when it comes to them, I'll see it when the record shows it on the TV screen. Because again, too inconsistent for me to throw my hat into that ring.
Okay.
Well, if you talk about consistency, I mean, what are I would argue the Packers are more inconsistent. I mean, they lost to the Panthers 2 weeks ago.
Browns.
They lost to the Browns in week 3. I don't see that the Lions beat who they should. Most of their losses come to teams that are equal caliber.
Outside of the Vikings.
But it's a divisional matchup. I think that definitely plays a bit of a factor.
It's different when you're in the division.
Okay.
And everybody plays everyone different. And I've seen plenty of times where the Packers have gone in and beaten the Lions at Ford Field or in the Dome or whatever. I mean, I've seen it in person, and so it's just one of those things. I know you guys are young. You haven't had as much heartbreak as we have over the years.
Is it fair to say with the Lions-Vikings game that Brian Flores and the Vikings were due to have a good game versus Jared Goff? Because leading up into that point, I believe the Lions had won 5 straight versus Minnesota, going back to that 2022 season when the Lions finally got over the hump. That first game the Lions won in 2022 was against Minnesota. So, or I believe maybe even 2021. But the first game the Lions won after starting 0-5, 0-6 in the first year of Dan Campbell was against the Minnesota Vikings. And since they had won all but one game outside of that against Minnesota. So was it hey, Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings defense, they were due, they came in, the Lions played with their food a little bit, gave up some errors on special teams.
Yeah, it's going in soft.
They weren't ready. Brian Flores knew that record, and he was like, "That's about to change."
Again, I think we talked about it after they played. I think O'Connell thought that they had at least one win last year
Yeah.
that they missed out on. So they had the Lions circled.
So isn't it an advantage for the Lions to only have 3 divisional games left as opposed
Absolutely.
to the Packers and Bears having 4 divisional games left?
I think for the sake of wins and losses, yeah. But again, that's kind of why I'm giving Green Bay a chance because they can beat their way to the top.
I mean, the same could be said about the Lions, though.
Here's the thing, and I think it comes down to this. With 4 divisional games left, and you have 2 teams with 4 divisional games left, right, between the Packers and the Bears. If one of those teams goes 4-0, you're likely winning the division because that team would be 5-1 in the division. You know, in the case of the Packers right now, the Packers have beat the Lions, and they also beat the Vikings.
Right.
So they're 2-0 in the division. If they go 4-0, they're 6-0 in the division. They're going to be division champs.
So, I guess my question to you two would be then: do you think there's more parity within the division, or are the Lions possibly playing down to their opponents?
I don't think the Lions are playing down to their opponents. I think the Lions have had a bit of a tougher schedule and also just have had more adversity versus the other, like within their own organization, whether it's injuries. And also, I mean, we don't really talk about it because they've been so great, but having 2 new coordinators is an adjustment period. Whether it's a good adjustment and it's a quick, it's still a lot of change versus what you've had for the last couple of years, what you've been successful with. I mean, it's totally a difference.
Well,
So-
and you got that
Yeah.
Charles, and you got that speculation going on because you've got the big guy, just like here with the spectacles down here with the big card now. You know, what are they doing with the offense going forward after last week?
And so, Eric, I'll answer that question real quick. You look at the Lions, they lost a divisional game, and they lost games to the Eagles. They lost a game to the Chiefs. They lost that, I believe, first game of the year to the Packers. So those are the 4 losses, right? So 2 divisional games and then 2 games on the road against teams that were in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
Let me present this question to you and say this. Of all of the errors that each of those contenders in the NFC North have, right? You'd say the Lions, you would say the wart of the Lions right now is the protection of the quarterback. I think you could say for the Chicago Bears, it's that we don't really know if Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson and the Bears' magic, it almost seems like fool's gold right now because of the schedule that they've played. And
it has gotten
It
better
is extremely
lately.
school to me.
Yeah.
so Chicago Bears are actually a power run team. If you watch them play, they want to run the football and they want to take shots down the field. Well, you can do that when you're playing a 4th place schedule. So is the wart of the Bears the schedule, and then the Packers is the wart of the Packers their inability to have a clear definition of who they want to be. Do they want to be a pace and space? Here's some motion. Here's jet sweep. Or do they want to say, hey, we're going to run it off to Josh Jacobs 30 times a game, let our defense get after your offense and try to just clog this game down and shut off your arteries? And then what do you think what of those 3 teams contending for the NFC North, which team has a fatal flaw that they're not prepared to be able to fix that could prevent them from winning the NFC North or making the playoffs? Eric, let's start with you.
I'll go with Detroit's lines.
Right?
Yeah, the offensive line and their defense. It's seems to be the main issue. You brought in 2 new guys on the offensive line, and they haven't been a cohesive unit like they have in the past couple of years. So you've got an unsure Jared Goff in the pocket, and then you've got an unsure running game because of inconsistency within the offensive line. And then you're injured in trying to figure out answers on your defense when your offense isn't producing. So you're kind of behind the 8 ball almost twice as far as the Lions go in certain aspects until they can shore up the line and then get healthy on defense when it comes to the Lions anyway.
I would actually go with the Packers. I think that it's actually, I would say their wart's more of their, especially after Tucker Kraft's hurt, they don't have that guy. They don't have a wide receiver 1. They don't really have a playmaker that's, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, even with the Bears, you've got Odunze, DJ Moore. You've got guys to throw the ball to. I mean, Colston Loveland, your first-round pick. Who do the Packers have? Yeah, they have Matthew Golden. He's been whatever. Christian Watson's back. He dropped a pass last week. He doesn't look that great.
Did have 2 touchdown catches, though.
But he's not looking like the Christian Watson that we thought
dropped
he
some
was.
stuff last week.
Yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase drops balls, for goodness sakes. I mean, like, it happens. Guys drop balls. I don't know. I just don't think there's a clear guy that, they have Jaden Reed's out. Like, they're just not a complete team. And I think you see when Jordan Love doesn't have a guy to bail him out, is he really as good as we think? I'm starting to doubt it, personally.
Well,
So
I don't like to play for a 4th place schedule. I like to play to be on top, and if I want to be on top, then I'm going to prepare to be on top, and I'm not going to make it acceptable to lose games. So the fact that if you can't make it an okay for 4 losses and find excuses for 4 losses, you find ways to fix what went wrong on those 4 losses so you win more games. And it's not acceptable to lose no matter what type of schedule you have.
So my take on this is, which team has their fix right now currently residing on their roster? And I got to say it, I think it's the Chicago Bears.
It honestly is.
I mean, the Lions don't have a magic potion that they can wave, and they can't have a genie in the bottle show up and say, hey, here's Frank Ragnow, and here's, a Pro Bowl guard. Well, Ragnow retired, and a Pro Bowl guard left last year in free agency. So, don't really have that solution. And then you look at the Packers, and they don't have an identity. And I think they don't have an identity because their roster is so malleable that they're kind of set up to be able to either run it or pass it, but they're not really good at either of those things. So I think in trying to be so flexible, the Packers actually hamstrung themselves based off of their roster construction because they're not really able to get into shootouts against teams outside of the game they tied against the Cowboys, which everybody's able to score points against the Cowboys. Facts.
It's getting better. Yeah, it's getting better.
But you also look at it like the Bears, their solution or their wart is that their schedule. We don't really know what they are because of the schedule that they've played. So from my perspective, from the outside looking in, they've got all the pieces that they need, and really what they need to do is prove that with a second-year quarterback and a first-time head coach and a roster that's very well constructed. I mean, I think Ryan Poles is by and large, done some bad things drafting, but his free agent moves and acquisitions, first of all, the Bears are still kind of skating off of the haul that they got by trading the number 1 overall pick to the Carolina Panthers. I mean, in that draft, they got DJ Moore and 2 first-round picks for Bryce Young. And those first-round picks eventually turned out to be one Rome Odunze, just to name him. So, the Bears, I think, have their solution on the roster. The question is, the solution is yet to be seen by the general public. So it's still kind of a mystery box.
Can you agree or give me a quick answer, both of you? Say the Packers beat the Lions on Thanksgiving. That would be 2 losses to the Packers, and you got a loss to Minnesota. That pretty much would eliminate their chances. Do you agree? Or do you
if
think
the Lions lose on Thanksgiving to the Packers, the Lions will not win the NFC North. And I think if they lose to the Packers on Thanksgiving, the Lions will not make the playoffs.
I still think they have a shot at the playoffs, but I think it definitely makes the division quite hard to overcome.
All right. Well, I mean, that kind of sums it up right there for the NFC North. I mean, touching back on our prediction. So, Eric, standing pat with the Packers. Jared going steady with the Lions. And I'm actually going to jump ship. I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears to win the NFC North. I'm joining up with you, Tom. I think they're going to go 10-7 at worst. Maybe 11-6, and I think that gets the NFC North 1. And I think it comes down to the final game between the Bears and the Lions. I think that's like January 4th or 5th at Soldier Field in Chicago. That's going to be the game of the year, and it'll only be 4 to 5 days into the new year. I think that one decides the NFC North. Yeah. I mean, I truly do. So I'm joining. Make it official here. I mean, I'm a huge Lions fan, and I will be rooting for them to win. But I think the odds are in the favor of the Bears because they still don't have the fatal flaw like we've seen with the Packers and we've seen with the Lions. I think I got to go with the Bears now through, as we enter week 12 of the season.
Well, that's going to do it for our show tonight. Make sure you join us on Saturday at the Community Field in Gaylord for Menominee versus Pewamo, Westphalia. The coverage will begin probably around 1:30, I think, Charles, for the kickoff time of 2 p.m. So, again, make sure you are on the NFHS network. It is not through Next Level Broadcasting. You need an account through the NFHS network. It is Next Level Broadcasting through the MHSAA. So, again, we hope to see you there on Saturday. And again, thank you for joining us tonight. For Charles Strail, for Jared Stamen, I am Eric Huffman. We hope you all have a great night, and we will see you next week here for the Next Level Broadcasting Show. Have a great night.